cells that could face prison sentences of up to 2 years. In a crackdown on internet child abuse, David Cameron said police and intelligence officials will work together to find abusers who use what's been called the dark net to target children. Sky's technology correspondent Tom Cheshire has the story, a warning that his report does contain a sexual reference.
Like many parents, Sally let her 10-year-old daughter have her own mobile phone. She used a private messaging service popular among teenagers.
Some boy comes through, a 14-year-old boy, or he said he was, and they were talking. When I came downstairs and checked the phone, there's a man's penis. Then a bit later he said, "Send me a picture of you in the shower. Come on, I've shown you how to delete."
This is what the Prime Minister promised to address.
If you ask a child to take their clothes off and send you a picture, you are as guilty as if you did that in person. So we're going to change the law. Just as it is illegal to produce and possess images of child abuse, now we're making it illegal for an adult to send a sexual communication to a child.
At a summit with leading web companies, NGOs and charities, he also announced £10 million in funding for a new unit shared between the National Crime Agency and GCHQ to track down perpetrators on the dark net, the parts of the internet only accessible using anonymity software. These are just the latest moves in an ongoing effort to fight child abuse imagery online, which is having some success. So far this year, the IWF has removed images from 27,850 websites, a 109% increase on 2013. In 1996, the UK was responsible for 18% of all child abuse imagery hosted online. Today, it's responsible for less than 0.3%. David Cameron has had remarkable success in persuading the giants of technology, companies like Google, Twitter, Yahoo, and Microsoft, to sign up to fight child abuse imagery online. But technology is always changing, and over the last year we've seen the rise of private messaging apps like Snapchat, like Line, like Kik. Those companies weren't represented here today, but that's where child abuse imagery is increasingly heading, and that's where law enforcement needs to follow. But this new law won't cut across international jurisdictions, and so wouldn't have helped Sally and her daughter.
I was absolutely fuming. I said I was going to contact the police. He said, "Please don't do that, ma'am," so they knew he was American.
Because the offender was American and because the private messaging service was based in Canada, there was nothing the police here.
Rely on parents and children being able to tell their parents what's happening to them, that adults are asking them for sexual messages, and it will rely on parents knowing about this new law and reporting it to the police. And once they do, police will now have the tools to be able to prosecute.
But the darkest areas of the net hide some of the worst abusers. Now, the government spy centre, GCHQ, and the National Crime Agency will form a new joint unit to scout the so-called dark web for predators. Action 2 is being taken by companies like Google. Some search terms are now blocked and suspect sites taken down. But police budgets are under pressure. There's a shortage of trained officers. Critics say online abuse can't be stopped by technology alone. Angus Crawford, BBC News.
Well, joining us now from our Belfast studio, we have Jim Gamble, a child protection expert and former chief executive of the Child Exploitation Online Protection Centre. Jim, does this closing a loophole change things dramatically in any way or not?
I don't know that it changes things dramatically, but I mean, I applaud the NSPCC yet again, a campaign to directly influence the law as it relates to children has got the ear of government. So that's a good thing. I think it will help in a number of cases, and every case is an individual case, so any individual child we can protect is a good thing. I'm very concerned, however, about some of the other noise being made in the background of this summit, which is really the redressing of older initiatives to make it appear as if this government really haven't got it wrong in the last 3 years, and that they're at the forefront of the fight against child protection on the internet rather than lagging quite badly behind.
What sort of things do you have in mind? I mean, the other thing that came out today was some possible involvement with GCHQ. Is that not new?
Well, no. Look, as a former head of counter-terrorism here in Northern Ireland and a former head of CEOP, when I was there, we had a GCHQ secondee working on behalf of their teams in our offices with our teams. We worked frequently with the West Country, looking at lots of complex technical issues that were being used used, not least BitTorrent, by some of the worst offenders to actually share images in a way that was much more difficult to find. So that was certainly being done up to the end of 2010. But perhaps like many of the things that were being done routinely then, it paused under this government because 2011, 12 and 13 saw CEOP actually wither. Now, the National Crime Agency under Keith Bristow and Johnny Gwynn and CEOP, I'm sure they'll want to accelerate and pick up the slack that was there, but for the government to claim any credit around that for being a new idea, I think that's a flawed premise.
It's very interesting. You applauded the closing loophole, as you said, but you suggested, therefore, that a lot more needs to be done that could have been said today. So what else? I mean, to be positive, what other things would actually help?
Well, what does help is industry. The industry working collaboratively together to make the online environment safer, as they have for the last 4 or 5 years, are in the lead. So that's good stuff. From government, we need actual investment in actual resources in the UK. So that's not talking about things in broad conceptual terms. We need more police officers dedicated to this work. And we had Keith Bristow himself, not within the last 6 weeks, say there are too many to deal with. So some of the new technologies that will help us identify more will simply add to the list of to-dos. So what we need to have is a greater investment from government. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Let's empower local people who are properly vetted to come forward and help the police as special constables. They're volunteers in this austere environment. For very little money, we can engage a huge citizens' army of 1,000 people. Train them, get them online, make sure they're vetted and supervised, and start arresting these individuals in far larger numbers. Because at the minute, I feel, under this government, they've looked at CEOP as the house they haven't looked after for the last 4 years, and 5 months from possible eviction, they're trying to put, a thin coat of veneer paint on it to make it look better than it actually has been. And too many people have suffered in the last 3 years, not least the victims of Dr. Miles Bradbury. So we don't need the high-level rhetoric. What we really need from the government is an actual investment in real things that will make a real difference on the ground.
Jim, thanks very much. Jim Gamble there joining us from Belfast. Time is 19 minutes past 5.